Hello and welcome back to the channel. With the holidays coming to an end, I decided to give all the Christmas bots the nicest goodbye that I could think of. Checkmate. I'll start with the Yeti bot, rated 450, and work my way up. And I don't speak Yeti, so luckily we get a translation. Let's find out what opening our Yeti friend plays. D4. Hey, he might play a London. We get D4, I'll play knight to F6. I always play the King's Indian against my own opening. I like that he's holding a chess pawn. I think that's quite funny. Okay, we get like a Queen's Gambit. I'll play D6. I'm just looking for getting keto, finishing my development. And this is a low-rated enough bot that just by developing my pieces, eventually I will be given free material. Maybe not as bad as Martin, but pretty close. Play Bishop G7, just normal development. We can already see he's going a little bit haywire. Rook to H2, very suspicious. Queen to A4 does give check. I'll use it as an opportunity to develop my bishop, hit the queen, and then maybe I'll castle. Okay, nice. Queen to B3 hits the pawn. I won't overthink it. I'll just play B6. Defends the pawn. Looking to castle here in a sec. Knight C6. Yeti's finally developing. Okay, knight to A3. Still technically developing, but now the knight is on the side of the board. I'll go ahead and castle, maybe strike in the center. Okay, D5. Hits the knight. I'll play knight to E5. I'm basically ready to go. I'm ready to play aggressive now because all of my pieces are developed. I've castled, and I can't say the same for Yeti. Let the games begin. See, he may not have developed his pieces or castled, but maybe he has some positional understanding. Although I greatly doubt that, considering the free bishop. You're a tough cookie. Thanks, bud. I appreciate that. King to D1. Obviously can't castle because of the bishop. I'll play knight to E4. Strike on F2. Force maybe king back to E1. Okay, rook to B1 does nothing about this, so I'll take it with check. King goes back to E1. I'll drop back the knight. And I'd like to find a way to get more pieces into the game. Queen to C2, I'll play bishop to F5. That's a good example. I line up the bishop with two of his major pieces. I can move the knight with discovered attack. I'll play bishop D2 check, forces king to D1, and then knight to F2 picks up the queen. Or he could just sacrifice the queen. So I'll take the queen for certain. No, why? C6, hitting the pawn that's pinned, breaking open the center. It's not worth being up material if you can't mobilize your pieces. So I'm trying to create some lines for my rooks, for my queen. I should get into his position. Okay, he finds a tempo on us. We'll drop the bishop back. The idea still stands. Okay, knight to C2. I'll pick up the free pawn. Now, how do I actually close in on him? B4, en passant is forced. Not really, but it was probably the best move there to continue opening lines. We'll pick up the free knight. E3, I guess, stops queen to D4. Protect my passed pawn. Worst case scenario, we just have a rook trade. Bishop to A6. Honestly, he can take it. I'll play queen to D5. Basically, any trade here is good for me. It doesn't even accept the free material. Play queen to A5. Okay, finally takes. I'll recapture. Maybe we have ideas of queen C3 taking the rook. Check. King has to go back. Pick up the rook. King D2 and we'll promote. And then it's checkmate and not too many moves after that. King to E2. Just bring all my pieces into the game. Check with the bishop. Take the rook. King to H4. Check. And then we get mate. All right. Yeti actually played a pretty good game for 450. Wow, you're good. Great job. Thank you, Mr. Yeti. I appreciate that. All right, we'll move on to the Gingerbread bot. Let's see what the Gingerbread man plays. A3. Please don't eat me during the game. If he tries to beat me, I might have to. Play knight to F6. That is a free pawn, and we accept free pawns. Oh, me with the horrible arrows again. Let's go over the rules of chess together. Rule number 1, let's have a fun game. I'm on board with that. Rule number 2, friends don't eat friends, and those are the rules. I can abide by rule number 1. I'm not going to make any promises about rule number 2. Maybe we can bring the queen out. Okay, h4 stops that. Maybe we can bring the bishop out, but that kind of walks into d4. Queen to f6 is interesting, but then just knight to f3. So I'll play b6. I'll get my bishop out. Since the g2 pawn isn't there anymore, I might as well capitalize on it. e3 hits the knight. Play h5 to cement my knight on that square. He's going to have to play f3 and ruin his pawn structure to kick me out of there. I'll play bishop to b7. Takes, and I'm still hitting the rook. Or even better, takes, and then I could have picked up the rook. All right, rook to h3. I'll play bishop to e7. Takes. I could take the pawn on h4. But somehow I'm not very convinced. I'll just play knight back to f6. I mean, I've picked up a free pawn. Development is not looking so great for him. And now it's really not looking so great. No way to castle anymore. So I'll just go ahead and strike in the center, develop my pieces. Queen d7, maybe even long castles. Yep. Should be pretty straightforward. He's put himself in quite an awkward position here. For example, the knight can't develop, the bishop is completely stuck. Obviously, we talked about the fact that there's no more castling. So it's going to be kind of hard to untangle this position. You have me on the ropes. Play g6. No interest in losing a free pawn there. And I'll just finish up my development. I do want to castle queenside, because if I took this g2 pawn, there's no reason to castle into a semi-open file. Go ahead and castle. With that, I've completed my development. Now I can start looking for attacking moves. I'll play e5, strike in the center. Play rook to e8, and I will just consume him down the middle of the board. At least that's my plan. Plans change, but it seems like a pretty solid one. e4, start breaking open. That's where the king is. That's where all my pieces are. You mix those two things, and I hope we can find checkmate at some point. We'll go ahead and follow up with knight to e5, putting some pressure on that d3 pawn. Maybe takes could be good for me. Okay, queen to c2 is what we actually get. We'll go ahead and take, because I'm interested in opening lines. Bishop has to take back. Right. Do I want to trade here? Whoops. That's the question I'm asking myself at the moment. And I think the answer is no, because this bishop isn't doing all that much, whereas this knight has a lot of different opportunities. So I'll play c5 instead and continue my pawn breaks. b4. Okay, he's looking to create his own lines. I'm going to prophylactically play king to b8 to get my king off the same file as this queen. Knight to e2 looks like it traps this bishop if I play c4. And that's the problem with these kind of tangled positions where the pieces are just thrown all over the place. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason. And these kinds of things happen. So we'll play c4, trapping the bishop. Nowhere for it to go. f5 is just as good as any other square. We'll take it. And now the d3 square is weak after the queen recaptures the pawn. Right. We have knight to d3 check. Outpost for the knight. No way to boot it. You can't do that. I'm the gingerbread man. Watch this. Bishop c8. We'll skewer the queen and the rook. Our pieces are super active, so we just have a lot of potential in this position. I'm assuming recapture. Yep. And let's see. I'll play knight to g4. Put some pressure on this pawn. f4. Wow, that is really aggressive. Exposing the king quite a bit. Go ahead and I'll take the bishop on c1, so I can in the future have two pieces on this e3 pawn. I'll play bishop to f6. You have any gumdrops I can, what do you say? I can eat, I assume. Your rook to b2 does not defend the e3 pawn. Now the f4 pawn crumbles. This king is butt naked all by himself. I'll definitely take a free queen. He takes. And we're probably looking at checkmate here in just a couple of moves. King to g2. I'll bring all of my pieces into the attack. That's a free knight. Right, we'll bring the rook into the attack, and basically any combination of moves here will be checkmate. So we'll start with check. Ha, don't eat me yet. And checkmate. All right, that's the gingerbread bot. Let's go ahead and play Santa. I have no hard feelings for Santa whatsoever. Santa treated me nicely this year. Santa plays e4, apparently. I'll play c5, the usual Sicilian. Ho, 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 I'm making my list already. Wow, that's kind of creepy. All right, we'll play d6. Takes, theory so far. I'm checking it twice. Yep, takes. Gonna find out who's not here. Nice, yeah, there it is. Takes. Gonna find out who's naughty or nice, exclamation mark, and then takes with a period. Knight c3, g6. I'm so tired, yet I still have 9 billion houses to go to. That's pretty funny. 9 billion? I thought we only had 8 billion people on the planet. Could have gone up. Queen to d2, knight c6. So far, this is all book. g4, absolutely. Could play knight to d7, or I could play bishop d7 and then rook to c8. I'd like to get a counterattack going, so I'm going to go with bishop d7 instead. Knight back to e2 doesn't seem right here. I'm going to play knight to e5 to punish that, because now I can hit this pawn, and I have a fork to get rid of either this bishop or the queen, whichever one he wants to give to me. Have you made any chess friends recently? Yes, the Gingerbread Man and the Yeti. I'll go ahead and take on e3. This bishop is pretty important to get rid of, because that's the one that's going to replace our own bishop, and it operates on the dark square. So you'll notice that white has light squared pawns, but no dark squared pawns. So these pawns are considered weak, or at least in need of pieces. Let's take that gift. I don't know if it was a gift. It was more like a give and take, if you will. I'll play bishop to c6. Maybe there's ideas of d5 in the near future. h4. Wow, very aggressive. h5. Meet fire with fire. Takes, takes. That kind of stops the attack in its tracks. And if g5, we've closed up the position. There's no more mingling for the pawns. They're just intertwined. They're locked together. Knight back to d1. This is very passive play. I play knight to e5, centralizing my knight. If you try to boot me, I'll put it on g4, where it's really strong. Look at that outpost. Incredible. Mrs. Claus won't be too happy if I lose this game. Man, you had plenty of cookies this year. I think you'll be just fine. Queen back to d2. I'll play queen to b6, just developing my pieces. Maybe takes, takes, takes is kind of interesting. Knight to g3. King is still in the center with no opportunity to castle. So that screams to me that I should try to break open the center of the board and bring all of my pieces into play. Bishop to f3. Very sound move, trying to get rid of this very strong knight. I'll play d5. Time to start busting open the position. Takes. This is pinned, so I think I can just play e6. A gift for me. Santa got funny. All right, e6. Put some more pressure on this pawn. Takes. I'll recapture. h5 is a little bit scary, but I think I beat him to the punch in the middle of the board. Okay, knight to e3, but it's not enough defenders, so I'll take. Knight takes g4. Interesting. Very interesting. You've studied a lot this year. Ho, ho, ho. Thanks, Santa. Okay, I can just take this with tempo. If you take here, I pick up the queen. If you move the queen, I just want a free piece. All right, queen it is. Unwrapping another gift. Maybe next year we should play checkers. I'm not all that good at checkers, actually. All right, we should be able to wrap this up. Let's see. Check. We'll just bring the king as far out as we can. Maybe I could even get a ladder's mate. That would be very on brand. c4. Check from behind now. Check again. King has to come up. Bring the bishop into the game with checkmate. So not a ladder's mate, but we wrap up the game against Santa. All right, moving on to the next bot. We have Holly rated 1800. So we're playing with stronger bots now. It might not be enough to just develop in castle. I might actually have to focus up here a little bit. Play the London. Let's try a happy snowy opening. I like that. Nice and peaceful. Let me castle and then we'll get exciting. This is a popular opening amongst elves. Holly, I will take your word for it. I know nothing about elves. Knight to d5. I'll just drop the bishop back. Make sure you practice every day and don't let your chess skills go cold. Queen to e7 is kind of tricky, looking for check. Picks up the b2 pawn. So we just play c3. None of the knights can go to b4. And the queen definitely can't go to b4. f6? Is that looking for e5? That's actually quite uncomfortable. I might develop to e2. Let me think. Bishop to e2, e5, e4. Knight to f4, takes, takes. e4 pawn needs to be defended, so knight d2. That seems playable to me. But I might develop the knight first and then decide where to put this bishop, depending on whether or not this break happens. I'll play knight to d2. See if Holly follows through on the plan. G5. Wow, this is extremely aggressive. Kind of seems to weaken this light diagonal. There's not a lot of consequence. It would just be check and then king moves over, assuming I move my knight, of course. I could also play c4, knight moves, and then a3, kick the knight all the way off to the other side, which I quite like the look of. So I'll play c4, force her to figure out where this knight goes. Maybe knight back to b6. No, she continues. Okay, now where is it going to go? Back to a6? Yeah, forced. Knights aren't all that good on the side of the board. I could even play b4, looking for b5 with this fork. That seems really strong and challenging. So I'll play b4. I'm taking a lot more space than I normally would before having castled, but wow, she's not punishing me at all for it. So I'll play b5 and take my free knight, I guess. g4, I have the option to play knight to h4 or knight to g1. And even though this looks a lot more passive, I feel more comfortable with this, hitting the pawn, and then maybe rerouting the knight, than I would playing knight to h4, because I don't see how it's going to get out of there in the future. And anything like, I don't know, a little maneuver like that would hit my knight and make it go bye-bye. So I'll play knight to g1. I'm sorry, I haven't been reading her commentary. Is she trash-talking me? All right, we do get f5. I'll pick up this knight because it's better than that knight. This one's in the center, that one's on the side. You've taken the first piece, but don't get too comfortable. Don't worry, I'm not getting comfortable at all. Maybe a little bit. I'll play bishop to d3. Back to basics. There's no reason to change my plan completely just because I'm up a piece. I'll develop my pieces. Castle. You're strong. Thank you. I appreciate that. Rook to b8. How do I actually want to continue this? Because if I castle, I feel like I'm kind of walking into h5, h4. And my king might actually be better in the center of the board. I'll play queen to c2. Queen to c2, and I'll decide in a moment. Okay, we do get c5, breaking open the center. I'm not interested in giving her an avenue for her knight or giving her queen and bishop any sort of vision. So I will play d5 and walk right past it instead. Bishop to g7 develops, hitting the rook. I'll offer a rook trade since I am up material. And I guess that should be my my big plan, is trading off all the pieces and making good use of my extra material. We get queen to f6. I'll go ahead and castle now. I'm really not all that intimidated by the prospect of a kingside attack. Pawn takes, I'll recapture. Maybe I could even trade here. Funny check. Looks interesting. She allows it. Should I trade though? Because this bishop is so much better than this knight. I don't think I will. I'll push e4 instead. I'm going to try to open up the center of the board since that's where her king is. And there's really no future for this king except sitting around in the center. This is a fun game. I'm glad she's enjoying it. Play knight to c4 because I definitely am. I'm up a piece. So, and I'm not up a piece anymore. Okay, f4. Yeah, basically it is what it is for this bishop. So I'll play knight to a5, looking for knight to c6. If takes, I can recapture, get a little bit of vision for my rook, and try to play more aggressively. Actually look for a way to finish off this attack. I'll start with check. Maybe I can play knight to f4, knight to e6. Right, the king blocks the bishop from protecting the e6 square, which looks pretty good. Bishop takes. I could take with the rook, I could take with the pawn. The pawn looks better because then I can push e5, e6, and just kind of pawn storm. Whereas if I take with the rook to f8, I'm not exactly sure what the follow-up is there. So I'll take with the pawn. This pawn sure has had a funny journey to f4. g3, this is kind of what we talked about in the last game, I believe. Trying to make an open line, which is excellent, right? If takes, there's even mating threats on g2. But I'll play h3 and just completely interlock the pawns on the king side because I'm not interested in getting checkmated, surprisingly. King to e8, looking maybe for a bishop sack. Could be interesting. I'll go ahead and play e5. I'll play e6 if there's no capture. Taking a lot of space in the center. King to f8, e6, pretty solid. F5, f6 to follow. This, unfortunately, there's still no breakthrough. These squares are covered by my knight on c6, so we're looking pretty strong. Queen to f6 is good, right? Stops the f5 pawn, so I need to bring more pieces into the game. Play queen to d1, looking for queen takes h5. All right, h4, moving the pawn out of danger. I'll play queen to h5. I'm looking for e7 check. Okay, we get king to g7. I wonder if I can just rook lift and finish off the game that way. It looks really good. I mean, there's really not a lot of counterplay. Rook to f4, check, bishop f1. And I don't see any follow-up to that. So I'm feeling pretty confident about this move. I'll play, rook to f4. Rook to h8 gives me intermediate check. King to f8. Now the queen is the one defending the rook. And I think I just have e7 check here, forcing the queen to, forcing Holly to give up the queen. So I'll play check. Queen is gone, but I'll take the rook with intermediate check, and then I'll pick up the queen right after. Yep, pick up the free queen, and we should be basically at checkmate here in a couple of moves. Check. Check, and then reroute the rook. Or rather, queen to e7. Nice, and checkmate. All right, that's 3 or 4 bots down. Moving on to now kind of a hard bot. We're moving into Penguin, who's rated 2250. This bot is officially higher rated than I am. Ah, you must be my new chess enemy. Good luck, you'll need it. Word to the word to the wise. Run and hide, friend. All right, we get d4. I'll play my normal King's Indian. Ecuador, interesting. Interesting place for a penguin to be from. That's kind of funny. You've never played a penguin as good as me. That is true. I've never played a penguin at all. d6. This is all theory. We're just developing, castling. Buckle up, my friend. I've studied the games of many greats. You're in trouble. I believe you. I believe you, Mr. Penguin. There's a reason you're higher rated than I am. All right, we'll play c6. I'm not looking to cause too much trouble in these first couple of moves. I might just play e5. And look for a kind of more solid game. Maybe we even get d5, c5. Okay, he castles instead. Play queen to e7. Slowly improving my position. Play rook to d8 now. Knight to f8. Knight to e6 is kind of interesting. I can drop the bishop back in case of bishop to h6. Finally, a worthy opponent. I'm glad you think so, my friend. I'll play knight to f8, rerouting the knight. This penguin looks really angry, I'm not going to deny. He looks very angry, just in general. He might be my thumbnail just for that. All right, maybe I should be thinking about takes, and... Whoa. Let me try that again. I should be thinking about takes, and then d5, I believe. Takes. A lot of trades in the center. But I think this is about as good as my position is going to get. So I'll go ahead and look for that breakthrough now. You're quicker than I thought you'd be. Is that a threat? I can't tell. I shall take that. Since the bot decided to take with the bishop, I almost want to play knight to e6 and hit this bishop. Like we've talked about in one of the previous games, this bishop is pretty valuable. It controls the dark squares, and as you notice, same thing here. The pawns are on light squares, and it's the bishop that will come and replace my bishop at some point. So I'm going to play knight to e6 instead. Bishop goes back to e3. Nice, defending the bishop. And I've now had a tempo to develop my knight as well. Let's see, does d5 work now? It looks like it does. d5, e5, maybe knight to d7, hitting the pawn. We have ideas of d4 at some point, so we'll play d5 right now. Takes. I will recapture. And we do get e5. What? I'm not threatening anything. Oh, absolutely not. Knight to e4. Takes. The bishop is pinned. I'm hitting the knight. Let's do that. See what happens. Don't even bother trying that. Okay, queen to e2. He just shuffles out of the way. I guess I could trade and leave this pawn isolated, which I guess looks fine. So I'll go ahead and play that, because I can't leave my knight there anymore since the queen has moved out of the way. We get pawn takes on c3. I still haven't developed this bishop, which is quite annoying. I'll go ahead and do that. I'll play b6. At some point I can move my rook because this bishop won't be hitting the a7 pawn. And then I can develop bishop b7, rook to c8. Looks pretty good. So let's do that. Bishop b7, fianchetto the bishop. I now have double fianchetto. Isn't that fun? Rook to c8, hitting the pawn on c3. Bishop slides back. And what's my actual idea here? Because now I have developed. I've brought my rooks out, castled. I'll play knight to c5. I can reroute the knight to e4 to hit c3, and I put some pressure on this pawn. Oh, bishop g5 I didn't see. Skewers my queen and my rook. f6, takes. This bishop can go anywhere because it would attack the queen with the rook. I'd be lying if I told you I'm tremendously excited about that. The other thing I could do is play queen to d7. Allow takes and takes. I lost the exchange, but my pieces are still relatively well placed, and maybe I can look for some counterplay. I'll give that a try. Actually, no. Queen to d7, c4 is even more annoying, because now my queen is on the same file as the rook. Okay, I'll play f6 because I don't think I really have a choice in this position. Recapture with the bishop. Let's see if there's any... There it is, bishop to a6. Discovered attack, but I did see this, but I noticed that the knight defends the bishop, so I think I can just play queen to f7. Maybe even queen to g7. Put some pressure on c3, force this trade right away. Then takes, and I think I'm doing all right there. I'll play that. I'll play queen to g7. Takes, I'll recapture with the knight. Wow, queen to e2, completely ignoring this tension. Does that invite rook to e8? What's he going to do? Sack his queen? Takes. King to f7. Rook to b8. Knight d6. It's risky, but it looks fun. I'll play that. I'll play rook to e8 and get rid of this pin with tempo. I'm not falling for that. He does. He sacrifices the queen. All right, let's see what's up with that. Obviously takes, king to f7. What's the follow-up here? Rook to c8, threatening a fork instead. Okay. Wow, do I really have no defense to that? You've underestimated me, honk. The penguin is honking at me. Oh, goodness. Wow, do I really not have a defense? That's incredible. That really is incredible. I'll take here, because if check right now, then bishop to e7. Okay, he takes back with check. I think I have to play king to f6, which is such a bad move. King to e7, I fall for this. King to e6 is illegal. Up we go. King to f6. Rook takes d5, defends the knight, picks up a pawn, activates the rook. He's playing tremendously well. The end is nigh, friend. I believe you. I really do. Rook takes d5. I'm going to try to hold on for dear life, though. Let's see. I'd like to play queen to e7, and then maybe reroute the king to h6 if I do get checked anymore. And then there's ideas of maybe check and then repetition in some future. So we'll try that. Queen to e7. Fingers crossed. I'm sorry, what? Rook to f8. Right, if I take, knight takes h7, hits the king, hits the queen, and then I'd be just down a rook at that point. Wow. And if king back, check here, I'm sure. Takes, and that ends in rook d7, picking up the knight. Holy moly. Yeah, that looks like it's wraps with the penguin. Let's play back. Rook to f7, incoming. Yep. Forced to take. That just ends with rook d7. Wow. I expect your unconditional surrender and some fish. He is a penguin at heart. All right, I'll blitz out these moves just to see how this game would finish. All right, and that wraps up our game with the evil penguin who has defeated us. Holy moly, look at him. Victory is mine. Honk, 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 honk. Wow, what an angry penguin. All right, despite that loss, we'll still continue and play Cinta for the last round. All right, we meet the Cinta bot again, which I actually have played in a different video. This time we're playing as black. Knight to f6. Look how evil he looks. He looks like a mall Santa that just got off his shift. Like that evil smirk of I just got paid. Queen to d3 super early. I think this is what... where have I seen this move before? Knight shall be the silentest of knights. Yeah, that's not creepy at all. I've seen this move before, and I remember calling it a Martin move. It really does look like it. Anyways, I'll play g6. It doesn't really change my plan. It's just objectively, I can't imagine the best move in the world. There's nothing on this board for you. That's not very inspiring. We'll castle. Maybe c5. Start developing our pieces. Bring the rooks to the center. You guys know the drill. Takes. I'll recapture. Maybe a queen trade is totally okay. The chessboard is a furnace. Your pieces are about to be the kindling. Holy moly. Guy's got a sharp tongue. All right, I'll play knight to c6. Bishop e3 develops and hits the c5 pawn. I'll play b6 to cover it. h3. I'll play bishop to... You're on the naughty list. You can't escape. The other Santa... Actually, the other Santa didn't say I was on the nice list. Food for thought. I could play bishop to e6, which is normally where I'd develop. Or I could play bishop to b7, which seems to make a lot more sense now that I've created this fianchetto. So I'll play bishop to b7 to cover up these weak light squares. a3. I can't really play queen to c8 because of knight b5, but I could play queen to c7, but I could play queen to c8, looking to bring my rook to the d8 file. I could also just trade and see if I can pull off a draw. That seems like a good plan. I'll take on d3. With tempo, bring my rook to the open file. Cinta rest, ye merry queen, ho ho ho. Well, both of us, so touche, I guess. Rook to d8. Rooks are happiest on open files. Actually, rooks are moderately happy on open files. They're the happiest on the second rank, right? Bishop to f4, activating his bishop, right? Because his bishop wasn't doing all that much staring into this wall of pawns. Not that I can say it's doing all that much here either, but I guess it could support knight b5, knight c7. So with that in mind, I'll play a6 to cover b5. Oh, what have I done? Bishop c7 hits the rook, hits the pawn. All right, we'll shuffle out of the way. I will not fall for that. Fall for what? You think that was a trap? I had to move my rook. Bishop takes b6. Go ahead and start centralizing our pieces. I need to look for counterplay in this position. Oh my god, but he looks for even more counterplay. Knight to e5 hits the rook. My only move is rook to d6 and then takes. Rook back. I've lost 2 pawns in that process. Yikes. All right. Rook drops back. Bend the knee. Is this guy Mafia or something? Bishop takes e7. Pieces are dropping like flies. Rook to e8. Please give me this knight, but he's going to capture probably. Or bishop d6, I guess it's fine too. We'll take. Knight's got to go. There's no way he just pushed the knight deeper into the position. All by itself too. Because he's confident that after knight d7, knight c5 is guaranteed. Okay, I'll play bishop to g7. Keep the bishop on the long diagonal. Seems to be the best approach. He doesn't even move the knight. He just leaves it there. Because he knows knight b6, knight c5. This knight is by itself, but it still has plenty of options to retreat. Because there's a bunch of pawns missing. We got rook a to d1. I guess I'll force the knight out now. Put my rook on the open file. Knight goes back to c5. I definitely don't want to drop this bishop, but I don't think it's doing all that much looking at this pawn. So I'll play bishop to c8. Oh, bishop to c8. This pawn drops too. Wow. I'm just giving this guy pawns like it's coal for Christmas. You'll be stuck playing me forever and ever. I sure hope not, Cinta. Bishop to c8. Forfeit the pawn. He doesn't even take it. He knows he's winning. Knight to d5. What's this bot's rating again? I think it was like 3,000 something. Yeah, I'll play f5. I'm just gonna play like a human. I know this is a bot, but I'll try to destabilize the knight. Knight moves to c7. I don't really have a choice but to move my rook, so I guess e7 hitting the knight is best. Although a6 drops all the same, so it's not that interesting. Bishop c4 check. The king of intermediate moves. Hark. All right, king to h8. I'm definitely not moving towards where the battle is happening. There it goes. The a6 pawn is gone. We could finally get a pawn of our own. Then c3 hits the rook. I guess I'd have to drop back. It looks manageable, so I'll attempt to take a free pawn on e4. c3, I'll play knight to c6, defending my rook. Knight to b4, removing the guard. Your tree of life is wilting. Oh my goodness, this guy is not holding back. If I take, and then look for this trade, rook to d8 is pretty devastating. Hits the bishop, then he'd pick up the, or rather, no, bishop to f8, and then I lose the bishop. No good moves left for me, apparently. If I move the rook, I drop the knight. No real choice but to play it out. Might as well lean into it. Join the dark side. Is there anywhere I can move this knight where I defend d8? Not even in my wildest dreams. All right, again, I'll just play this out. I'll take. This is basically guaranteed. Yep, I have to lose a piece. Yep, I'll move my king, lose this piece, move my knight out of danger. Oh, not even, another check. Like I said, the king of intermediate moves. There goes my knight, and I'll just play this out quickly and see how Cinta actually converts this win. All right, and there goes the game to Cinta. And apparently I've earned a spot on the naughty list just for playing. Anyways, if you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. I apologize if my voice sounds a little bit hoarse. I've been teaching all morning. And I will see you guys in the next one.